Okay, so we've been going at this for a few days now. We've got the tops basically cut. Still got to sand those down. The edges over here on the bandsaw was kind of a challenge, especially for the longer coffee table. But we got it done. Took a little bit of maneuvering to make that work, but we got it done. So next thing we got to do is cut the legs out. We're going to taper the legs and then also put a round over on the front half of those. Then we also need to make the brackets to attach those to the tops. Give everything a good sanding, put it together, and then put some finish on it. So let's get going on that and try and finish this project up. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm in the middle of a big project like this, I cannot continue going until I clean up the mess. I just, my OCD won't let me. So this is just my OCD kicking in and me having to clean up and sweep up all the dust and kind of put everything back to its starting position, so to speak. Definitely don't recommend moving your bigger equipment like your joiner, keeping it level, but in this case I've got a small shop, so I have to adjust everything as I need to. Always keep your pencil sharp. Okay, so here I'm just milling up the stock for the legs, cutting them to a rough length, definitely cutting them oversized so we can fine tune it later. You see, I'm trying to see exactly how many legs I can get out of the width of that stock. Next I'm going to cut them to, again, a rough width, just so I can take them over my joiner and through the planer and kind of get them to the right thickness. And then I'll come up and clean that up afterwards. It is true that when you're woodworking, you're just continually taking little bit by little bit off until you get to kind of the final dimensions that you need it to be. It can be a tedious process. So now that they're at the right thickness, I'm going to cut them to the proper width. And each of these legs is going to be cut at a 12-degree angle, just to splay them out just a little bit. Okay, so I have to build a way to do a repetitive cut on this 12-degree miter right here for these legs on the opposite side. Obviously I could measure and mark each one of them, but we'll get a much more accurate result by building a little jig that I'm going to clamp to my miter saw, because my most accurate miter saw I have not actually replaced, and I'm going to have to build a new miter station to put it in where I can put a fence and stop gauges and all that on there. So I'm just going to build a little jig, and the idea will be to essentially glue a stop block on here with enough room where I can line up the cut clamp this to the fence that's on the miter saw, and then I'll have a way to do repeatable cuts. So I'm actually just going to take this Titebond Instant Glue, CA glue here, which I highly recommend. Just going to put some on there, and I'll take the activator, spray it on there. At this point, it doesn't really matter where I put this stop block, because the idea will be I can adjust this on the back fence and clamp it wherever I need to. So as long as it's far enough back that my actual cut point is over the edge, I'll be in good shape. So, all right, that stuff dries super quick. And there's our jig. So I'll clamp that down, slide that, line it up, cut, repeatable cuts. Okay, so there is the jig. I just clamped it to the fence. It's lined up so that it will cut an exact cut every time. I can just take a new piece, slide it down, repeatable cuts. Let's get these knocked out. There's nothing like over-explaining a very simple jig, but I guess I just wanted to leave no room for questions. Okay, so we're going to taper the legs, and this is just a very simple jig to accomplish that. Very easy to make. There's tutorial videos all over YouTube on how to make these. It's a very simple concept. So I've just taken a sheet of 1/2 inch plywood, just kind of stripped it, and want to make sure that the sides are parallel, and where you set your fence to cut it to make it parallel, leave it there because you're going to need that. And basically, to create the taper on the leg, I want the top part of the leg to be at 1.5 inches, which is where it is right now. And then the bottom part of the leg, I want it to taper down to 1 inch. And so essentially all we do, I put a stop block on the back side here that it can run against. And then there's a runner right here that leaves the spacing exactly 1.5 inches on the top. And as it comes down to the bottom, it's exactly 1 inch off of the edge of this plywood. So as I run that straight down my fence, it's gonna taper the leg for me. So again, very easy jig. You can find tutorial videos all over the place to how to make these. So let's make some legs. Once again, a very simple jig, but I use this thing all the time. And you can also see my jigs are absolutely function over fashion. With these particular legs, I only taper one edge of that, but there is the possibility, I've done legs before where you actually have to rotate it to taper 2 edges. But with this design, we're just tapering the one side. Now here I've just got a 1/2 inch roundover bit in my router table, and on the outside edge of the leg, I'm rounding over both sides, flipping it over so that you've got a completely round front. Right here I'm actually cutting up to some stock to make the brackets to connect the legs to the tabletops. I'm cutting a 45 on the corners of these brackets. This shot looks like I'm about to cut my fingers off, so I thought I probably better get a different shot to show you. My fingers are well away from the blade. Be very, very careful with this. And the other thing I would caution about cutting them this way is there is not a lot of meat left to hold onto that fence. So if you don't take it slow and you're not incredibly careful and have a good grip, it can take that block and sail it across the room and hurt you or somebody else. So be very, very careful doing it that way. Right now I'm actually drilling some recessed holes in these brackets to hold the screws, and then there was lots and lots of sanding. The holes I'm drilling here are actually for dowels that will attach the legs to the brackets. And then this is another jig I made, again very simple, just to line up the brackets to mount to the underside of the tables. This is another one of those scenarios where there's probably a lot better and easier way to do this, but this was the way that I came up with to mount everything. So I screwed one side of the bracket down to the table, and then brought the leg in and let it rest flat on the underside of the table, got it lined up between the two brackets, and then just put tension on it so that it would kind of hold the leg in place, and attached the other side of that bracket to the table. Again, probably not the best way of going about this, but it did work. Then once that was done, the pre-drilled holes I just used to guide the bit and drill all the way through the leg to make way for the dowel. You see, I also used a clamp to kind of help keep that pressure there so that the leg wouldn't move while I'm drilling. And once they're drilled, put some glue on the dowels and put them in. About every one of these needed some extra persuasion. And then once they're done, you can go ahead and cut them flush with this flush trim saw. It's actually a dovetail saw, but it works well for this. And I'm taking a piece of cheesecloth and kind of getting all the dust off of it, getting ready to put some finish on. This is just Danish oil, which I absolutely love. It's the natural Danish oil by Watco. I just love this oil. I use it on so many products. All right, we are gonna call that project done. Just put the last coat of Danish oil on there, and love how it came out. The grain pattern really popped, and the color just looks amazing. So super happy with how they came out, which is just in the nick of time because they're actually gonna come tomorrow and pick those up. So we got them done just in time. but I'm happy with them. Hopefully they will be too. Thanks for stopping by and for watching the video. Hopefully you learned something that you can kind of incorporate into your own projects, or maybe you watched it and you're like, dude, there is a way easier way of doing what you did. So either way, drop those in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and we can kind of learn together on this thing. If you like the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll come out with more videos, either build videos or just some other ones to do there. So also, just a reminder, don't forget to stop by my friend Cody's YouTube channel and subscribe to him. Organic woodwork, and just an amazing guy, incredible woodworker. So I know you'll learn a lot and enjoy his channel too. So thank you guys so much for stopping by. Keep building, and we'll see you guys next time.